Hi everyone, I'm Kay, and welcome to the Music Lounge. If you ever wondered why the Sequential Circuits Pro One has such a cult following and such a legendary status among producers, well, look no further than this video, because now I'm going to show you the features and have you listen to the sounds of this amazing synthesizer, which will hopefully give you a better understanding as to why this is considered a secret weapon among producers worldwide. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. The synth has basically the same layout as its bigger brother, the Prophet 5. It came out in 1981, around about the time that the Rev 3 was also produced, which means it has the same layout. So you have two oscillators, your oscillator A and oscillator B, and you have your mixer section where you mix your oscillators with noise. The sound out of the mixer then goes into the filter, controlled by the filter envelope, and the overall loudness is controlled by the amplifier. And your sound can be modulated by the modulation matrix here in the upper left corner of the panel. And you have some more cool features such as various modes that we will talk about later. You have an arpeggiator and you have a sequencer. So first things first, let's look at the oscillators. So you have two oscillators and you have two waveforms. In oscillator A, you have a sawtooth and you have a pulse wave. Both can be on at the same time, so you can basically mix your waveforms together and your pulse wave can be modulated. You have the same waveforms for oscillator B with the addition of the triangle wave, which is the wave that has the least amount of harmonic overtones, making it ideal as a modulation source, especially for FM type modulation, which is handy because oscillator B can also be switched from normal mode, where it is in a normal oscillator range, normal audible range. It can be switched down to a low frequency range and be used as a second LFO, giving you effectively two LFOs. On top of that, it can also be decoupled from the keyboard, which means you will set the frequency and no matter what key you press on the keyboard, the frequency of oscillator B will remain constant. Now this can be used for various effects. Even when the oscillator is in normal mode, you can have a pedal tone, or you can use it as an LFO that is independent of the keyboard, or you can vary the pitch by coupling it to the keyboard. So it offers a wide range of possibilities even in this section alone. Looking at the LFO, which is also a oscillator, albeit a low frequency oscillator, you also have three shapes like in oscillator B. So you have your sawtooth, you have your pulse width, which cannot be modulated, and you have your triangle. So let's have a listen to the oscillators. A basic patch. Alright, so as you can hear, this synth is renowned for its bass. This is the pulse wave. It can be modulated. So we have the pulse width right here, which can be also modulated. So the pulse width also, interestingly enough, goes through 0. There it is, cuts out. So the fact that it goes to 0 is also very interesting because you can modulate your pulse width, and when you set it in the neighborhood of the 0 point, it will cut out the sound, which can be used to great effect. And we will listen to that later on when we will talk about modulation. So that was oscillator A. Let's listen to oscillator B. Sorry, we didn't listen to oscillator A, sawtooth. So here's the sawtooth. Sawtooth and pulse wave. All right, let's listen to oscillator B. So here's the sawtooth. Here's your octave range. Let's listen to the pulse width. Goes through 0 as well. And here's our triangle. So as you can hear, this is the least sonically interesting one, but very suitable for modulation. So let's listen to both oscillators turned on at the same time, and let's listen to the sawtooth. Detune that slightly. That is one fat sound. All right, moving on here, the filter. So we have basic filter controls cutoff, resonance, envelope amount, and keyboard tracking, which determines how much the filter responds to how high up the keyboard you are playing. Let me demonstrate. So let's listen to the filter. Actually, before we listen to the filter, let's listen to the noise. So the noise is your standard white noise. And now let's listen to the filter. Let's bring up the resonance at 9 o'clock. Let's bring it up to noon. I think we'll start losing some low end. Yeah. We are already losing low end, and the filter will soon start to self-oscillate. It's about 3 o'clock. And we are self-oscillating, which means you can play the filter. So we bring the resonance up, turn the oscillators down, and let's just play the filter. Let's make that an octave. Okay. All right, so there you go. There's your filter. It can now be played through resonance as a sine wave oscillator. But as you can see, there's still some room in the knob, so it can track your keyboard at 100%, which means you can play scales and you can play whatever you want in a regular way, just like your normal oscillators. Or it can track your keyboard less, or actually more than 100%. So when you're playing an octave, you'll be playing actually more than an octave, or less than an octave. All right, so now let me talk about the feature that is the most interesting about the Pro One, which is the modulation section. Now, it may be quite confusing to look at the first time, but it's actually quite ingenious and actually quite clever once you understand how it works. So if you're familiar with the concept of buses, this will make a lot more sense. So the modulation section, when you look at it, is laid out in two parts. So on the left, you have your sources. So here you have filter envelope, oscillator B, and LFO, which is right here. So these are your sources. So the signal from these sources can be sent to two different buses. Bus 1 is the wheel bus, where you control the amount of that signal by the wheel, and your bus number 2 is direct. So the names might be a bit confusing, but don't worry about the names. The important thing is you have two buses, and you can send your modulation signal to either one or the other. And then at the sources, you can select where you're taking the modulation signal from. And again, you can choose bus 1, wheel, or you can choose bus 2, direct. Now, when it's in direct, the amount is not controlled by the wheel. Instead, it is controlled by these pots right here. So the amount of the signal going into bus direct, bus number 2, is determined by whatever you set these pots to. So let me demonstrate, because with this synth, the way I like to use it and the way I like to play with it is it's a lot about experimenting and listening to what you're doing and then going for what sounds best. So let me just demonstrate how complex these modulations can get. So let's start with the first one, which is our filter envelope, and let's send it right into the pitch of oscillator A. So let's send it to direct, and let's take our modulation for frequency of oscillator A from direct. Nice percussive sound. Let's turn that off for now. All right, and now let's grab the LFO and modulate the pulse width of oscillator A. So LFO, and let's route it to the first bus. So let's route it to the wheel. So the LFO amount is turned up. Let's route it to the wheel, and let's grab our signal from the wheel. There you go. Let's make it slower. So we get the sawtooth. Now let's grab the triangle. Let's also hear it with going through 0. All right, and now let's bring in the first modulation. See, and now let's maybe get rid of the LFO. So let's turn that off right here, and let's just keep this modulation. Let's make it more snappy. So you get really nice percussive sound when you filter it down. It's a nice percussive sound with a lot of low end. All right, let's keep exploring these modulations. So what else can we do? We can also modulate the filter. So let's set it to wheel, and let's modulate it with the wheel. So we have the LFO going to the wheel. So let's see. All right, now let's bring in the third modulation. Let's bring oscillator 2. So let's flick it into low frequency mode. Let's detach it from the keyboard so it's like a regular LFO. And let's route it. Let's route it to 222. Let's route it to the wheel. So we basically now have 2 LFOs modulating the frequency, the cutoff frequency of the filter. So now it's set to a, now I set it to a pulse wave. Going quite abruptly, we can smooth that out by mixing in the triangle. Make it super smooth, just a triangle. I like this one better. Now the cool thing is you can also achieve FM sounds with this. So let's get rid of this filter modulation. And let's get rid of this, this modulation, and let's just modulate the frequency by oscillator B, the frequency of oscillator A by frequency of oscillator B. Let's move up the octave. Let's go to normal, and let's set it to triangle. Let's bring the amount way up. Best results are when you combine the pulse wave with the triangle wave. Now, you can basically mix and match these sources and destinations, and then basically you get very complex kind of modulations because you can route basically 3 different sources, 2 or 3 sources at the same time to the same bus, which will result in very complex types of modulations. So let me further demonstrate what complex kinds of modulations you can get out of the synth. So as you can see, I mean, I wouldn't say that the possibilities are limitless, but you get a really vast amount of modulation possibilities. And I mean, this synth just lends itself to experimentation and designing sounds that are interesting. Let's move on with the section down below here. So you get an arpeggiator, you get a sequencer. So just look at the arpeggiator. It's straightforward. You just hold down the notes and it arpeggiates. You can go either up or up and down. And then you have also a repeat function. And you have a drone function. Both can be very useful. And you also have a sequencer. So there's two positions on the sequencer, the play mode and the record mode. So the way you record is you just flick it into record and then you choose the sequence that you want to record. The rhythm that you choose doesn't really matter. There's just one rhythm that is dictated by the frequency of the LFO. So the sequencer is very interesting. It offers you two memory slots or two sequences. You got sequence 1, sequence 2. So these are two memory slots where you can record two sequences. Originally, the synth could store, I think, up to 64. Don't quote me on that. Maybe less notes. This particular synth has the CPU upgrade, which makes it possible to store up to 256 notes per sequence. Now the notes or rests don't matter. The sequencer will just play the notes as you input them, or alternatively it will respond to a trigger signal from an external source. So I will now show you how to record a sequence. You just hit record and then you choose the sequence that you want to record, and you record the notes in the sequence that you want them in. Yeah, and then you can play it back. You just flick it back into play. All right, so I will now go ahead and record some notes and make this get rid of all these modulations now. And I will mess with the sequence that I recorded now and show you how you can distort the sound from something really basic to something really far out there, and then come back and conclude this. So here we go. Well, this pretty much concludes my demonstration of the Pro One. So if you liked the video, please make sure to like the video. And I would also appreciate if you would consider subscribing to my channel, because I would love to see you in the next video, of which there will be many to follow. So I hope the video was useful and helpful in some way in showing you how to navigate the synth, what sounds it is capable of, and also why it is such a highly regarded instrument among producers. So that's pretty much it from my part. I'm Kay. You have been wonderful. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.